Hello, my name is Diyah Najah. I'm artist Diyah Najah. I'm a printmaker and a mixed media collage artist. I'm being presented to you by the Redan Trotty Library of the DeKalb County Public Library System. I am so excited to be with you this Black History Month. This is the year 2021. I always like to put the date on here because once it goes on YouTube, it could be 15, 20 years from now. So we're in the year 2021, and I've been invited to share with you and walk you through a really what I consider fun and interactive and thoughtful art experience. So we're going to do multimedia or mixed media collage. And as always, I want to tell you, you do not have to be an artist. You don't have to be like me. I'm a professional artist. You just have to have the desire to create. And more importantly, the desire to express and share a story, whether it be your story or a story of someone that you revere. Just tell a story. And I want to tell you a little bit about telling stories. That is one of the main reasons why I create art in the first place. I love telling stories. I used to make up stories as a child. I love entertaining people, and it's not just for entertainment purposes. It's because I exist through stories. I'm lucky in the sense, and I don't know if I want to use the word lucky, I'm divinely blessed to be able to express myself, not only in the written word, not only orally, but with my hands. And let me take the moment to tell you, you see these hands right at the top of the screen? These are my hands, and they're going to be working with you. And let me show you how we're going to switch screens at the time. When the time comes, you'll see my hands here. I had a best friend, and he used to say I had man hands, and I used to have this big old complex about my hands. And so one of the themes you'll see reoccurring in my in my art all the time are my hands. I learned to love my hands because of the beauty that they create. So I'm going to switch the screen back. And so hopefully you have a chance to get oriented with how these videos are going to work. All right, I don't want you to get confused in the process. So when I'm going to do this art creation and art workshop with you, I will be doing the art at many different vantage points and angles. I'll be turning the piece one direction, turning it another, and I would encourage you to do the same. So during this time, I'm going to come back in my superhero outfit. So if you would just hold on, I will be right back. Well, I am back. Thank you for holding. And so yes, this is my superhero outfit. It's just my apron. I want to start by getting to the nitty gritty, kind of just getting the work part out of the way so that we can talk and create. So I want to share with you some of the supplies that I'll be using as I intend to connect with all of the participants of the workshop. I use very reasonably priced art supplies. Why? Because I want to use supplies that would make sense if you just went to your local art store and bought some supplies, even on a budget. But don't worry, because we are here to do one thing and one thing only, and that's create frame-worthy art. So I did buy some watercolors. These I got on Amazon at a discount. I went to my local art supply store here, and I have just some regular acrylic paints. I have some oil pastels, not expensive, and I know that that's a relative term, but I intend to keep the cost of the work that we're doing down so that it can be accessible by as many people as possible. Podge is one of my favorite art supplies, and I was given a ton of them by a friend of mine who ordered too many. So this is important because this is matte Mod Podge, And what that means is that it's not going to reflect the light. So we're not creating shiny work when we seal it with this Mod Podge. Mod Podge is also used as glue. And speaking of glue, I have some acid-free glue sticks that you can get to. I have a ruler. You might need a ruler. You may be working with some straight edges in your collage. And I have just some different items in here for texture. I always love showing these. I have toothbrushes, and I like them because they create some noise, or what I would like to call splatter. So I have these toothbrushes here. All right. And I have some sponge brushes, just some regular sponge brushes. I have some spatulas just for sliding the paint around when you don't want to use a paintbrush. Of course, I have pencils. And there's a very special pencil that I want to tell you about, and that is my white colored pencil right here. This is going to come in really handy when we look at my all-time favorite, can I say that? One of my all-time favorite artists, this white colored pencil. So white colored pencil, hope you have one. Get one if you don't. And you can get yourself some magazines or some family photos. I'm using just traditional paint brushes, and with supervision, if you're a young person following around, I do have here an X-Acto knife, and of course I have scissors. So if you're a young person, make sure you do have supervision so that there are no injuries. And did I mention I have some sponges just for texture? Okay, I have a few videos online, and with the Read and Trotty library, I did a Kwanzaa series. You can look at those. I went into great detail because you never know how many times I'll be back with you. I went into great detail on how to create different papers, how to create textures, how to be liberal with the paint. I'm telling you, you do not have to be an artist to work with me, because we are going to create art. We're going to create expression. Okay, I'm more concerned with what you're putting into your art, the thinking, the imagination, the story that you're putting into your art. And then I feel confident that what it is that you're putting into your art will show itself on our canvas or our paper or our board or wherever we're working with. All right, let's see. I made some paper, and I'm going to share with you some of the paper that I made, but I'm going to share with you just a few more things first. You're going to need a spray bottle, and you're going to need a container to hold some water, and use some, old ratty t-shirts or anything like that that you can use to clean up with. All right, so don't use the good stuff. You didn't hear me tell you to use the good stuff. And I do have a little magic ingredient I want to tell you about. It works well with watercolor paint and watered down paint. And that is this bag of salt. This is coarse crushed salt. And I love what happens when we use watercolor or watery acrylic, and we just drop the salt on top, and it dries and it gives you a texture. So since we're talking about what happens with that texture, let me show you. Look at that. This is what it does. This is just watercolor. No, this was actually acrylic. This was acrylic, watered down acrylic. And I just, as it was wet, dropped those salt crystals on it. And I just left it there to dry. And look at this beautiful, organic, interesting texture. I love that. That's some of the paper that was made. And I did that texture a few times. Promise you, you don't have to know how to paint. I'll say it again and I'll say it again. This was just paint that I blocked out straight from the container, onto the paper. I just blotched it out, just bloop. I probably just sprayed some water, used my hands, and then I laid another sheet on top of it evenly, and I pressed gently. And when I opened it, look at this interesting and fun texture. So while you're looking at this paper, keep in mind, we're just not using one color. We're playing with a lighter color, and then we may add a darker color here. Yes, I know, I can see through this because I was experimenting with something that you can only do in a very safe environment, so I won't even mention it. You can tell what it is, but you won't hear me mention it. I want you all to be safe. I made some other paper. Look at this. What do you think I'm gonna do with this? Like, I'm gonna do something with it. This is just black and brown and blue. And I just took my spatula here. I blocked the paint down, and I took my spatula and I just moved it around. I moved it around. You can't do right, you can't do wrong. You just don't worry about being right or being wrong. Just do. Just create, okay? Same thing with this. I took some cream. When you have colors like this, I'm gonna bring it really, really close. I took some cream and some white, and I wanted that to be a really, really light situation. And you can see that it is creams and whites and a little bit of brown. I did the same thing here. This to me looks like the sunset, and I was intentional. I took some yellows and some reds and whites, and I created this right here. There's more. Wait, there's more. Just some black paper. What did I do with this black paper? You can tell I've done something with it, right? I just made some faces. Who are these people? We shall see. I have green in the mix, intentionally, very intentional with my colors. There you go. And I cannot forget about the blues, more blues. And I want to show you just a few more colors. I do have some solid paper that we'll be using. Another solid sheet. Some colors just dripped and splashed on. Have I told you that I did anything special yet? Painting? Any special type of painting yet? Nope. Just splash, drip, glide, slide, use my hands directly from the bottle. Definitely take a look at some of my previous videos with Redan Trotty Library just to see how all of this is done. Let me show you something from a different view so that you can see how these colors are coming together. Look at these rich colors. I'm excited. Yes. I thought that I was going to stick to a color scheme, and I thought that the color scheme that I was going to stick with was going to be in the blues and greens, but I'm telling a story here, and I will not limit myself or my story. Each of these is specifically the way it is for a reason, and we're going to talk about that later. I'll show you some more. Whoa. There's no technique at all. These are just all ripped pieces of paper. You could buy some paper from the craft section of your local art supply store. You can use specialty paper if you want to, whatever your budget says is right for you. So here's some printed craft paper. I have just a little bit, and I'm glad I have that. Water representing, bricks representing what? The city. Why? Because I'm from Brick City. But we'll tell you about this story in just a minute. And so I'm just showing you what I have. And what I have is quite honestly scraps. I'm using scraps. So let's turn this into something beautiful. Now that I've gone over the supplies, if you give me a second, I'm going to clean my workspace, and then we're going to talk about what we're going to be doing in just a minute. Thank you for holding. I'll be right back. Thank you so much. So the piece that I'm working with, I always like to start with the frame. So the piece that I'm working with is going to be a 12 by 16 piece. I already pre-purchased the frame because we're creating frame-worthy art, and we want our piece of art to fit within the matting of the frame. I encourage you to definitely start with your frame so that you can, you know, if you're trying to be more economical, you can create your art to fit your frame instead of creating the art and then having to get a custom frame to fit your art. So that's really important. So I just wanted to show you that. Now, let's get to the nitty-gritty. It's Black History Month, and I am excited to be working with you all this month. And of course, I want to speak to an ancestor that I revere, and tell a story of someone that is currently with us. Okay, so I'm talking about Romare Bearden. He is one of my, can I say he's my favorite? It's very difficult to say that, but he's definitely in my top 5, maybe even my top 3. And so I wanted to share with you and encourage you to do a Google search, but I have done a Google search too, and I want to share with you, there is a foundation. I'm not affiliated with this foundation in any way. I'm just doing a Google search and sharing it with you, but it's called the Beardenfoundation.org, and of all my research in Romare Bearden, this is for me where it's at. I mean, there's videos, there's interviews, there's Romare Bearden himself speaking, and so you can learn a lot about this American, and in this case African American artist who was from North Carolina. All right, he's had a very interesting life and leaves a legacy behind that I'm so grateful for. But let's look at some of the artwork and explore this site. You can also get some books from your local library, but let's go to the art. Now, Romare Bearden has done so many type of arts: watercolors, oil paints, collages, prints, public art, cover art, and so many exhibitions. But of course, we're going to go back up to collage, and because I want to share with you some of the elements of Romare Bearden's work. Let's go. Oh, yeah. Let's go here. This is beautiful. Now let's talk about the intentional and the dramatic and impactful use of color. Look at how the shapes seem almost rudimentary, but in a sense that I could do that. So see what I mean when I say you don't have to do everything in realism. You can do the idea of a shape. You can suggest a block for a head with a triangle for a nose. You can be really brute in your drawings and still create a complex, historically relevant, impactful piece of art. Okay, so there's some symbolism obviously in this art. In this case, there's some representation of religion. There's texture. Look at the different papers. And now I want you to pay attention to this large area of blues that's broken up here and there with the focal point. But understand, this is just not one slice of blue paper. This is cut up. This is intentional. There's lights and darks. And look at the contrast of the hands. And I think I told you I just love the hands. So look at the contrast of the hands. Look at the eyes. Look at how in this eye there's a red paper that's being used to indicate this eye shape here along with the cut within the dark. And look right here. There's nothing. It's just the color underneath. That may have meaning, that may not. Look at the landscape, the browns, the highlights in the browns. And even though we can see what's being depicted here, if we are understanding this piece, which seems to have a lot of religious significance, even if we didn't know that, because we are all coming from a diverse place, even if we didn't know that, we can experience what the people in this image are experiencing. The water, the coolness of the water. It's almost as if the sun's rays are coming down and shining onto this image here, what looks to be a church. And look at how the colors play right here. It's almost as if we've got shadows. So yes, we can use flat, but we can also create form by using shadows, curves of lines. And instead of just a plain blue right here, we have a blue with a mottled gray background. The same for the sun, which almost feels fuzzy. And I think that that's to give us an ethereal type of feel in this piece of work. And so yes, we can use some basic colors, and then we can go on top of those colors and add layers. All right? You can use the flats, and I'm going to show you that that happens as well in the art. Look, here we have it. Beautiful scene, very specific colors, and again, there is a story being told. All right, let's look at that ship. What do we think is this story? It's not for me to tell you, but it looks like someone has jumped or fallen into the deep ocean. We have an image here. This looks like a feminine image. I can't even tell if this image is masculine or feminine. Now let's look at the flat greens. But then we have some lines breaking it up. These lines we can make with paint. We can make this by using these greens to be cut out shapes. So you just take a piece of paper and just cut it and cut it and cut those waves, and this makes sense in this context. And then we have the element of surprise, which looks so perfect in this composition. We have these pinks. So don't be afraid to use color when you're working, a color that you don't think really belongs there, right? And so this piece here does show layers. It almost has a simplistic background, midground, and foreground with these images in the front. And so that's something that we can do. We can think in threes. We can work background, midground, and foreground. And in that sense, we're building our collage up. And I think that that's a very simplistic way for us to go about it. Let's not forget, it is not lost on us, this little piece of red here. It doesn't overpower, but it definitely draws our attention up there. And so you can definitely go on the site and explore a little deeper. Now look at this. Remember the texture that we created? We were talking about creating with the salt. See, this is layered here. We're just modeling the paper, playing with the paper. We can use our hands. We can use a paintbrush. This is warm. I can hear the bass. I can hear the jazz. I can even smell the smoke. We see the shape of the guitar. We see some really blunt hands here. And so we see the shape of the hand, yes. We see even the color depicting skin. But really what really makes it the hand is how we did a little bit of outline right here on the fingertips, all right? We see some textures in the jacket, a dark line indicating the arm, and technically that arm is not in proportion, and so that's something that we will notice in Romer's art. Everything isn't proportioned to realistic standards, and that's beautiful. And look at this gray here. So why would this gray piece be here? Let's think about it. Well, it looks perfect to me, but it balances. Look at, we've got the dark here, we've got the dark here, we've got the dark in this almost triangular fashion. We have this beautiful blue here that's repeated here. And guess what? We got a little bit of blue here and a little bit of blue here. So when we do use our colors, we want to spread them out in a way that feels balanced. This actually is a piece that has a lot more detail than some of the others. Let's move to another piece by Romer Bearden. Oh, all right, beautiful. So look at how the face is done in multiple styles. Okay, we have this flat brown here with a darker colored nose. We have really just stylized shapes. This is just a curve for hair. You don't necessarily have to do anything realistic. And then we take this style and we repeat it here. We take that same style, we repeat it here, and you know that this is about a mother's love. Now, something I want to share with you. If you don't want to be overwhelmed by too much detail, too much movement like in this piece here, if you want something more simple, let's go back here. This is just a green block. And it could be a whole piece of paper that we use. And then we use another layer right here. I see that we've got some red here, red repeated twice, red repeated 3 times. And then we don't stray too far away from the red when we're here with the brown, almost a burgundy color. Romer Bearden was a master with his color play and his color theory. And ooh, so here we have it. If you have some family photos that you want to use, and look at this example of how we can use it, okay? And to this day, many collage artists work in this style. You can look up a collage artist, Deborah Roberts. She uses, and many collage artists, but I want to mention Deborah Roberts because of the energy of what a collage can do, all right? I like this plain white hat. A really dark figure, and you could tell he's not just walking, he's bopping. You know how we do. He's bopping down the street, someone holding a cigarette. There's a lot of activity going on in this scene right here. We see the bricks, so we know it's urban. We see the street lamp. We see a child playing, children playing, kind of hiding and holding each other, and so many different faces. That face looks familiar to me. Shall I stop and spend some time to figure that out? And look at this random arm just coming in. So did he really create a whole body? No, but he created the energy and idea of a body. And so because of that, he can throw that arm there if he wants to. Just like this cigarette, it comes out of nowhere. Whose hand and arm does this belong to? To me, I see that it belongs to this figure. To you, it may seem different. Now, let us not forget. You see this cat right here? And to me, that adds not only an element of realism, in a piece that is abstract in nature, and it almost has some cubism elements, but it adds humor for me. So I love this. I love. Do you see why I love Romare Bearden? Look at this. It's faded. It's soft, but it has some sharp lines. Okay, see, he looks like somebody. Maybe that's just gonna keep happening. He looks like Sammy Davis Jr. to me, okay? But I'm not suggesting that that's who it is. I'm just telling you who it looks like. And look at this image. It definitely looks almost mask-like. And now let's go back to these use of hands. When Romare Bearden used hands, it almost is as if they're leaves on a tree that just give such movement, where he creates the space between the fingers and you can see the background color. Do you think that you can draw some hand shapes? Would they make sense in your piece? Again, this is not realism. This is the idea of a form, the idea of a body. And notice, if you will, we have this flat pink background. But notice how we created some extra movement through the plants or the foliage up here, through the repetition of this profile here. There seems to be some light pink streak here. And I want you to feel as though you can be free in creating these collages. And that's why we chose Romare Bearden. And when I say we, I really meant me. And so thank you for looking at those 6 collages with me and talking about the collages. And so at this time, I want to encourage you to think about your story. You see, without the shadow of a doubt, that Romare Bearden is a storyteller. And I love storytellers. Like, I love storytellers. And we all have a story to tell. And I'm going to tell a story in my artwork, and we can talk about it as we go along. But for now, can you please take this time to think about your story? What is it you want to share in your piece? Make sure your piece isn't too big and it becomes too much for you to handle, because you can always come back to this video and you can always make another collage, okay? But think about your story. Is it about a particular person? Is it about a heroic figure? Is it about current days? I mean, we just got out of 2020. We did, but the way January was acting, you wouldn't think that 2020 was over. But you know, life is really interesting. Life never ceases to be less than interesting, and art is healing. Okay, art can document history. It can document this space and place and time, and allow for change, right? Because who I was 2 years ago is not who I'm going to be today, but yet and still that art remains. So when we're creating this art, it's almost like we're imbuing or putting forth a part of ourself, okay, into this piece, and this piece is going to remain important forever. So I know what my story is about. What is your story about? Do you want to start with a sketch? I'm not starting with a sketch. Nope. I'm going to truly attempt to work through feeling alone, because I'm very in tune with the story that I want to tell, and I can close my eyes, and I have memories attached to my story, so I can close my eyes and I can think of all the colors that must be in my art. And now a memory just popped up, and I remember that I don't even have this color, so I need to make this color on some paper. My story is about a person. that's near and dear to me. So I'm just going to throw off and run off some of the things that are in my story that remind me of this person. A Volkswagen Beetle, bright, bright yellow. Jail bars. Island, water, beautiful sky, a bicycle, green trees, vegetables, the whole cornucopia of vegetables, soca music, calypso music, broad nose, brown skin, white hair, Chuck Taylors, and a pick with the fist on it. Am I going to do all of those images? I don't know. But I'm helping you to go through the process and maybe kind of brainstorm what it is that you want to put into your artwork. So mine is about a person. Yours can be about a time, a place, an experience. Your collage can feature no people at all, or it can feature one person. It doesn't matter. But let's get into this work. And as we get into this work, I'll share with you a little bit about this story, about this person that may or may not exist. All right? So I'll give you a chance to get everything together. If you need to write it down, write it down. Is it a song? Do you want to represent a song in your art? And I think I'm going to try to play some music in this background. All right. I'll see you in just a second. I'm going to switch to my hands and I'm going to release my face. So you see I'm working with a blank slate. One thing I did do is I got out a board because if I use my X-Acto knife, I don't want to cut through what used to be a very nice table. But I don't know how many artists have very nice tables. Any surface to me is an art surface. I don't think everyone would agree with me. So I'm going to pull out some work and I'm going to begin with my layout. I'll come back to you in just a moment. All right, so I'll be honest with you and let you know that I sometimes get ahead of myself and I want to remember the possibilities of what I'm doing. When I'm working with collage, I do like to rip my edges, and I love showing ripped edges. I really appreciate this paper. I used it before previously in some art, maybe something on my Instagram, but I'm going to do my best to stick with a background, a midground, and a foreground. And I put on some calypso because that'll help me get in the mood. And so the story that I'm creating in my art, it takes place in New York. It takes place in the Virgin Islands. It takes place in Georgia. All right. So I'm going to just start layering. And it is my intention to create the idea of a sky, but a sky that can be shared throughout all of the regions that I told you about. New York and the Virgin Islands and Georgia. Wish me luck. Wish me luck. And I'm gonna rip some of this paper now because Romare Bearden broke up his sky with various colors, and I'm gonna do the same thing. He didn't just keep it flat. You can use your glue stick. I'm going to use my Podge, and I will be back after I lay my sky. Hi. So this person that my art is about is one of those larger than life personalities, okay? And they're a lover of psychology, had a little time to think, and came across these psychology books. And this person that this art is about always talks about the study of the mind and knowing themselves and feeling and being self-aware, which is really important to me. Now, that may not be that interesting, but the person that I'm doing the artwork on is interesting enough for me to actually do a piece on, you know. So hopefully the subject matter that you're working on is something very near and dear to you, something worth doing a piece of art about. And so I mentioned New York. I remember when I was a little girl, I remember we went to New York to see this person. It's not a mystery. This person is my uncle. His name is Uncle Bryce. And my Uncle Bryce is not even really my uncle. He's my cousin. But you know how we do. If they're old enough, even if they're your cousin, they're your uncle. So I remember being a little girl, and I remember we went to this apartment off of Northside Drive in New York City. It was near the George Washington Bridge, and it was nighttime, and it was the boys and the girls, and me being a girl. All I know is my uncle went out, and it was late at night, so the pool was closed, and it was behind this really tall fence. But I loved swimming, and so does my uncle. And so he took the boys out, and I had to stay in the apartment, and I didn't really know why. But when I found out why, I was hot to death. I was hot to death. They jumped the fence and went swimming in their real clothes. And nobody had on swimming trunks. And I'll tell you this, I wished I was a boy on that day. I don't know if he thought I couldn't climb the fence or if he thought I couldn't hop the fence, but to go swimming, I would definitely climb a fence and hop a fence to get in that pool in New York City. And so let's just say boundaries really did not matter much. He didn't stud those boundaries. Much different person now. And so I like the movement that I'm getting, and I'm just laying different sheets of paper here to see if I want to break it up a little bit more. But I love this sky. I love what is going on here. And if you ever need to stop and go back and look at some more art by Romare Bearden, do that. But this is just paper. You could use the paper that you made. Again, this is not painted or nothing special. It's scrap paper. It's trash paper. But I don't throw away any trash. So, because I'm a collage artist, and you're going to be hard pressed to find a collage artist that throws away scrap paper. That's just not in our religion. That's not something we believe in. And so I'm just having fun. Remember, I didn't start from a sketch because I'm working from my memory, and I'm working from my visions and my story, and so I'm working from feeling, and I'm just playing with my story, and I'm playing with these colors because I told you that I'm creating a sky right now, and I want you to see that a sky can be anything you want it to be, okay? But one thing a sky generally is at the top. So I'm creating my sky, and I am going to attempt to do a background, a foreground, and a midground. But I want to remember and talk about New York. And for me, when I'm talking about New York, it can get quite gritty. And so I think I'm going to cap off my sky with this beautiful gritty textured paper here. And so I'm just going to rip. Don't be afraid. Really, really don't be afraid. Okay, I'm just ripping. Am I going to throw this away? Absolutely not. And I want to add this layer of gray. And I also like the way that this layer that I'm adding breaks up the paper. It's looking kind of glacial, so we need to soon leave New York and start to get to the Caribbean in this piece of work. All right, so I'm going to move into the transition of the Caribbean vibe, and maybe I can get some more instrumental calypso to get me in the mood. I'll be right back. So I want to show you something that I'm doing here. You see my bicycle wheels. That's the only thing that I kind of stylized. But I am layering some paper, and I think that the hardest part about collage is determining the layers. But look at this, right? I don't have this glued all the way down. These edges are raised up. They're raised up. Even here, they're raised up. I'm not gluing anything down to the edges right now because I may want to put something underneath, and if it's glued down like that, I can't do that without finagling and cutting and lifting a much larger and thicker piece than I want. So I'm leaving my edges up, because by leaving the edges up and just gluing down just a little bit, it gives you room to make decisions down the line, especially because collage isn't just about laying one piece on top of the next piece on top of the next piece. It's sometimes layering one part on top, one part under, and so we just want to leave our edges up, and that's a really important part that I wanted to show you before we got too far. So I did say that I was working on the background, the foreground, and the background, midground, foreground, but it seems as though my story is not allowing it. So I am building up this collage. Now, this bicycle, why is this bicycle so important? Because my uncle, who's my cousin, who's my friend, had been riding bicycles in New York City ever since he was 14 years old. So, my uncle, who's my cousin, who's my friend, I'm gonna break that down for you, has been riding bicycles since he was 14 years old. And so while I want to keep this as abstract as possible, it's really important that I include bicycle wheels in this piece. And so I wanted to allow this bicycle to have some contrast. Now, remember I said that my uncle, who's my cousin, who's my friend, who's 84 years old, uh, we're talking about memories. One of the best memories I ever had was when my uncle decided that we were going to drive from Georgia to New York to ride over the George Washington Bridge. That sounds simple enough, but yeah, let's just say this was a complete adventure. And I thought we were going to be doing something that made a lot of sense, but something happened to this man who has been riding bikes all his life, has ridden through several centuries, which is like 100-mile bike rides, several centuries. And I think when we took this trip, he was 79, maybe he was 80, I don't know. But everything was normal. We made it up there. We didn't kill each other driving so many miles together in this car. We stopped in DC here and there. We finally ended up where we needed to be. Woke up and we parked in Jersey. I don't remember where it's called, but Fort Greene or something in Jersey. And from the second we got our bikes out, I just knew it was the adventure of a lifetime. Everything was going good. We drove, we drove to Jersey, we parked, we walked across the bridge with our bikes. I was walking because I couldn't ride because I was too busy taking pictures. And it was just amazing. Like, had the trip just been that, I would have been happy. Now, what you see me doing here right now is laying down colors, seeing what I like, how I like it. These are not final decisions. This is just me playing with the color, seeing what I want to do. I definitely keep getting this feeling that I need to bring my sunset in. And so this is my sunset color, if you recall, okay? I'm just laying this color out, seeing how much room I have to play. Don't forget, I still got to represent the St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Island, and I still got to represent Georgia. So I'm just playing with the colors, seeing where I'm going from here, and I'm removing it, which is why you want to leave these flaps up. So back to my story. We're in New York, and we are on Northside Drive, which is right on the side of the highway. We ride down Northside Drive, then we ride through Spanish Harlem, then we ride through Harlem. We stop at this cafeteria back in the day where you could have went to a buffet, and it was a very, very clean buffet, okay? I had some of the best food. I didn't even know that buffet was there. So mad I didn't know when I lived up there. We get back on our bikes after the buffet, and we ride. We ride past the Apollo in Harlem. And then we get to Central Park. Now, I don't know if a button was hit or some magic code was keyed in that I didn't know about, but all of a sudden this man, who is my uncle, who is my cousin, who is my friend, lost his mind. He lost his mind. We're about near 34th Street. You know, it's real busy, all the lights and everything. We're about near 34th Street. I'm sitting here waiting for the light to change. He just darts out. He darts out into the traffic. You know how we do. We talk about follow me, just follow me. You don't need the directions. You don't need your GPS. Just follow me. And next thing you know, they taking off down the highway like they forgot to say follow me. Well, that's how he acted. He acted like he forgot that I was following him. And so I'm just cutting out my son. And so he darted into the traffic. So I'm looking to the left and to the right because I said, well, clearly my uncle lost his mind, so I'm waiting for the light. I thought he was just going to dart across and wait for me. No, he kept going. And it was at that moment that I knew that I had to get my life together. So I dart out there with him. I said, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. Whatever happens, happens. What can I do? And that began our adventure. And so you see, I have to put this bike, or at least the bike wheels. I might cut the top part off. I have to put the bike wheels because this man done lost his mind. He done rode through New York ever since he was 14. He used to work at one of the piers at the beach. He was a lifeguard. That man can swim. Then he lived in Jersey. And that bright yellow I was telling you about in the beginning, this is yellow about this color because he used to go to my high school, which is Arts High School in Newark, New Jersey, and he had this horn, and the way the horn sounded was like this. It was very, very embarrassing. School wasn't even out. We was in the 8th period of the day, and next thing you know, all my friends run to the window like, your uncle outside, your uncle outside. Rude, I'm embarrassed. But then it started getting cool by my senior year because everybody was like, yo, your uncle outside. Okay, yeah. He used to just pick me up and take me home. And I have to laugh at that because he crazy. All right. Now, do I want to make this bike a focal point? Not really. But it looks so good with that background right there. Do I want my sun to be down here? Do I want my sun to be up here? That's supposed to be the sky. Do I want it here? Do I want to bring it over here? So many decisions to be made. I like it there. I like it. But we'll see. I'll be back. We'll see what I decide. I'm back. I've been working. How about you? So I told you that the bike was really important. I think I made a decision about the placement of my bike, and I spent some time cutting out some leaves here, as you can see, and these leaves are representing palm trees and just green because my uncle, who's my cousin, who's my friend, one of his favorite pastimes is looking at the trees or any body of water. So I got that water represented here. And remember, this is an abstract, okay? Right now my focus is including the elements that I told you I needed to include, and now I'm just working on balancing the colors. So I'm not making final decisions because remember, this can slide out, this can move, this can switch, but I am looking at the colors and how they're playing off of each other because that's where I'm going to get my joy. So I'm going to take this time to keep drawing some wheels because wheels are very important to me in this piece. And you go back to working on yours and I will check back in with you in just a moment. I came back to tell you that I am loving what I'm seeing here. The colors are popping. I'm feeling New York. I'm feeling the Caribbean. I'm feeling the balance of the colors just playing. And still, have I made any final decisions yet? No. But how are you feeling about it? Remember, it was all about the textures, the fun, the playing around. It makes this piece come alive. And is this realistic? No. The drawing isn't about realism. In any of the examples that I showed you, it wasn't about realism, but it is about the beautiful balance of color, and it is about the stories that you want people to hear. and see. Because yes, you can hear the story through art. You can smell, you can see. And I did come up with the title for this piece, which is usually quite hard for me. And this piece is going to be called He Rides Over the Waves, or He Rides Over Water, or something like that. So is yours coming to you the way that you need it to? If it's not, pause, go ahead and Google, and get into that art. Look at that art. Remember, this is Romare Bearden inspired collage, but this is your story. Lucky, lucky, lucky. This is exciting. I will be back. You do some more, I'll do some more. And from here, I'm looking to bring some green into the picture. I need a more vibrant green. So let's see. I'm playing calypso music in my background. What's getting you in your mood? How's it going for you? Let me show you what we're working with. And so we are getting closer to the finish line. Remember, we're balancing the colors, so we're not done yet. But is this a book cover, or is this a book cover? Like, what are you feeling about your work so far? Are you making sure to do your repetition of colors? Are you balancing your colors on your space? I'm not done yet, but I just wanted to show you the process of where we're going. And remember, with collage, we're placing pieces here and there, and we're just seeing how we like it when it's laying there. We're not gluing anything down yet. We're literally just tasting it, seeing if it sits well with us. Do we like the way the color is balanced here? Do we like the way the color is balanced there? Do you like the shapes and the repetition of the shapes in your piece? Are you looking back to Romare Bearden's work? I mean, I'm just a lowly artist, but I do see that I have some elements that are reminiscent of Romare Bearden in my work. Well, I'm going to get right back to work and come back just a few more times and show you my finished product. Well, 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 I have got a placement that I like so far. Putting on some final touches, and I have been fighting myself to not put the words on just yet. Let me enjoy the piece without the words, but there are these words that represent my uncle, who is my cousin, who is my friend, and those words are, "And the beat goes on." That is what he says all the time. Anybody who knows him knows that that's what he says. And I want to put "and the beat goes on" right across there, but I'm enjoying this piece so much. I feel like I have achieved much of what I set out to achieve, and I could keep going. There's so many symbols that I want to add into this story, because all of them remind me of my Uncle Bryce, but I'm just learning not to do too much, enjoying the music that he loves while I'm creating this piece. And I really want to add a bee into this piece, because my uncle, as you know, likes to swim. He loves any body of water, and he loves looking at trees and leaves, anything green, anything lush, any body of water. Of course he loves water. He lived in the islands, and even before that, he just loves any water, any beach. He prefers the clear blue of the Caribbean. But this is a big brown man, and he rides bikes, and he used to always say, "I'm not built like a bike rider," because he's stocky and he's a thick man, and he's broad shoulders and big muscles. And all his life, he rode those bikes. And he has white hair. And don't ask him when he's going to get a haircut, because he's not going to get a haircut. And he wore this pick in his head. And he wore these white Chuck Taylors for many, many years, until his foot doctor told him, these Chuck Taylors will be the end of you. That was before Chuck Taylor started putting arches in their shoes. But I love the colors. I love the energy, the greenery, the water, the repetition of the shape that represents him. And I'm just dying to put, and the beat goes on. But I am stopping myself from doing that. But look at those lively colors. I think I am definitely accomplishing the goal of creating frame-worthy art. I think it's playful, balanced. It's got a lot of movement. And I think it represents my uncle, who is my cousin, who is my friend. Just putting a few more pieces on. How's yours going? I wish I could see what you were doing, but I know that it takes prep time to get the shapes, cut them out. And I just want to reiterate again and again, this did not require heavy drawing skills. Look at me using these hands. It didn't require heavy drawing skills. It just required the vision. I relied on my memories, and I let the memories drive this piece. And I am going to call this piece Wave Rider. I don't know. I'll probably change the name up again. But I am placing down my last piece of foliage, listening to this music that moved his soul. When I play this, he just goes to a whole nother world, because now he's in Georgia. He's not in the islands anymore. He's here, and he just comes to my backyard unannounced, might I add. The man never calls. He's been coming unannounced to see me ever since I was a child. That's just what the man does. And he's really not concerned if I'm busy or not, because technically he just wants to sit and look at his trees. He wants to eat tomatoes from the garden. He likes to just relax. One time I went out there to the back, and I was like, you don't feel that? He said, feel what? I said, there's like 50 mosquitoes on you. Do you not feel those mosquitoes biting you? He said, well, now I do, now that you mentioned it. And the beat goes on, and the beat goes on. And so I have these little edges that are sticking out. Just gonna snip them and line them up. I'm gonna snip this part right here, line it up. There's a thing I like to do with my art, collage art, when I'm done, And what it is that I like to do is I do like to put a coating of Mod Podge over it, but I'm going to let this dry a little bit more, okay? And maybe in that time I can truly come up with a title for this artwork. But I'm just going to hold this here and let you enjoy this piece. I want to thank the Redan Library for having me back again. And I know that these virtual workshops are a thing of the present times, you know. 2020 has brought us into a really interesting space and time where I can't touch you and I can't see you in person, but I hope that through art I'm able to touch you. I wish you all a wonderful and happy Black History Month 2021. And I want to acknowledge once again Romare Bearden. I want to acknowledge Romare Bearden for his talent. He is a prodigy, a man of great practice, known worldwide. Let's see a few more of Romare's pieces. And I want to know, did I hit the mark? Do you get an essence of Romare in your work? I love this right here. I mean, all artists, even professional artists, have to admit that we are inspired. And I can tell you that Romare Bearden is one of my inspirations. So again, do your research. You can definitely go to the Redan Library and get yourself some reading for Romare Bearden. Get involved with the art. I hope that you continue to tell your stories, and quite possibly I will see you again in the future. All right? So thank you so much. My name is artist Diyah Najah, and we have spent quite some time together from the concept to the creation. All right? Thank you for staying with me. I wish I could see the work that you've created, but you can always check me out, reach out to me. I am on Instagram at artist Diyah Najah, and that's DIYAHNAJAH. I love teaching art. I love engaging with you, and I just want to see what you're making. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful Black History Month, and I hope to see you soon.